Hello there guys, hope that you're keeping well. In this video we're going to be working through some really wonderful data that I've captured for you over the course of the last few live streams. It's on M16 and we're going to try to process through it as efficiently, I would say, as possible and get a result that mimics somewhat the famous Hubble Pillars of Creation shot, especially the one from 2014. That's the image that I have in mind. So without any further ado, we can dive straight into this. If you want to check the link in the description box just down below, I have provided for you my data. It's hosted on my Google Drive. It's all virus scanned, etc. And it will be scanned again once you download it. But feel free to drag and drop those over into PixInsight. And if you have the tools as well and you want to use those, then just drag that in as well. Now, these will alter based on your monitor resolution. If you had a 4K monitor, it'll go in that position. If you don't, you will need to right click and arrange icons and pull them somewhere appropriate for yourself. Now, I'm also going to be operating by using a reference, if you like, at the same time. So I've just searched for Hubble 2014 M16, and this first result, we can basically take this image, drag and drop it into PixInsight, and we can use this now as a color reference. And I don't mean that in any specific, like we're going to take, picker points from this. I'm just going to do it all visually and talk you through exactly what I'm doing, but right now we don't quite need that. Now, I will be using, over the course of this tutorial, these three paid tools: BlurXTerminator, NoiseXTerminator and StarXTerminator. They're quite frankly the best tools that I've ever bought for astronomy, and I include hardware in that too. Nothing's had quite the same effect on my work as those tools have. So if you would like to support my channel in some way, and my word, I would be grateful to you if you did. That is a fantastic way to do it, by buying yourself those tools using the affiliate links just down below. I get a small commission through those at no extra cost to yourself. But yeah, thank you to everybody who's already used those. It really means a lot. As you can see, I've just used the basically the window and tile option to get all three of these visible. I've applied an STF, that's a screen transfer function. It's just a visibility stretch. Nothing's actually been changed in the underlying data of these. And I'm now going to perform my first task, which is to get rid of all of these stacking artifacts. You can see these areas of lower signal to noise ratio. That's going to be job number one. So I want to make sure I do get rid of all of those. To do that, I'm going to use dynamic crop. Just drag in from the corners, and really I'm going to be quite aggressive with this stretch. I don't want any of that stuff staying in, and it is going to be quite a punched in view anyway. So as you can see, I've got the crop that I'm happy with. You could, if there was anything wrong, you could rotate this around and choose whatever rotation you actually wanted. You could also move this box and reshape, resize, etc. Once you are eventually happy, you can take it to the other two images first, then hit the tick, and now they're all cropped to the exact same common area. So that's what we want to work with. Next up, I don't think the rotation is quite what we're used to seeing, especially from that Hubble reference, where if I just bring that back up, you can see the pillars are facing, as you would expect, straight up. So we want to rotate these images 90 degrees counterclockwise. I'm just using the fast rotation tool for that as we move on to the next step. Now, there are basically some small gradients in the oxygen on this, but it's really not much. You could tackle this now if you should wish a couple of different ways. You could go into Toolbox if you've got it installed and use GradientXTerminator to try to get rid of this, or work your way through and use multi-scale gradient correction. And to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and combine it as is. I don't really think it needs doing. I have had a couple of practice runs at this, and I'd like to just show you my method of dealing with things when the gradients really aren't that bad. Sometimes it's better to do it later rather than right now, as silly as that might sound. Now, one thing we're going to want to do is, of course, pass these things through BlurXTerminator. So I'm going to do that basically live, and I really want to push this tool because the data underlying is absolutely wonderful, and I really think it can take it. It's high quality data. So we're going to go ahead and apply that to all three images, and we will cycle back and forth a couple of times, do you know what I mean, and show you the differences that it makes over these channels. It'll just take a moment to initialize this, and then it should run quite fast. as I am using GPU acceleration for this thing. If you don't have GPU acceleration set up, it will take just fractionally longer. I think that's a bit of a lie, actually. It'll take quite a bit longer, but it's not too bad. These files aren't mega high, file size, which directly influences, exactly how many pixels are getting worked on, makes it take longer or less time. But if we just zoom in for a moment, I want to show you the absolutely ridiculous results from this tool. So we'll make this HA window especially just bigger for a moment, and if I cycle back using Control and Z and then go back forwards with Control and Y, you can see the incredible change that just one pass of that tool has made. And this is what I was talking about, really. Nothing I've spent in astronomy is going to get me that kind of a leap for the asking price of these tools. They're absolutely magic. And once again, hashtag a little bit of an ad, affiliate links down below for those. I promise they're worth it. Give the trials a go if you haven't already. But before and after, look at that on the sulfur, it's just unbelievable. Really interesting channel. Adds more to the image than I would have thought, and that's one of the things that gets missed out typically with normal one-shot color narrowband approaches, which I'm definitely a huge fan of. But sometimes for targets like this, if you've got a particular image in mind you want to emulate, yeah, you really do have to go after it full mono. I think that's the way forwards. Now I've got these three images just about prepared. I'm just going to simply take them into the nonlinear phase by stretching them, and to do that, I'm just going to use a couple of tools from my friend Bill Blanchon, in this case HT Stretch. There are newer versions of these tools available, and you can also customize the options within the tools. It gives you instructions on how to do that. As it stands, they're going to work just fine for getting it nonlinear for me, basically, so I'm not going to worry about it. Right now, we're going to actually apply further stretches manually just in a moment. Now we've got everything stretched and ready for combination, we're going to go ahead and just do that. So channel management, and it's channel combination, and we're going to map the RGB to S, H, and O respectively, and that's going to give us that Hubble palette appearance. So there we go, we've got our combination finished. I'll just get rid of these three images off the screen now. We really shouldn't need to come back to those, so you also just close them down if you would like. But at this point you can see we're getting somewhere now. We really are getting somewhere. It's starting to look a little bit special. Now there's some major problems with this, like the original Hubble image from I think 1998 or 99 kind of thing. It did have these purple stars in it, but for the later shot, it certainly doesn't. If I just bring up the reference once again, you can see these are now kind of a golden orange. Not particularly interested too much in trying to emulate all of that, but I do want rid of that purple. So I'm going to hold on to Control, press I just on a Windows keyboard. That's going to invert the image for us, and then I'll pass S, C, and R over the image, and then Control and I to re-invert it, and that should have gone rid of all of the magenta, as it's the inverse of green, if you like, on a color table. So that's why the invert works in doing that. You can use the tool for something it's not really, I suppose, obviously designed for, but there it is. It works absolutely wonderfully, and you can see the effect that has had on the image. It's left the rest of the color balance well alone, which is always a good thing. Now, first things first, I just want to apply a baseline level of saturation over this image. I think it's already quite pretty, but just in order to make things a little bit more pliable later on and visible as we do work on them, just a small saturation boost. Now you'll know I'm not going crazy on this, and it's just a little baby step. You could actually probably skip that step entirely, but I just find that it can be useful. I'm now also going to open up the histogram tool just really quickly, and you can see image number 5. I'm going to select that from the drop down, select a preview window, and I'm going to take this left hand triangle, this pip, and you can see the preview histogram up there, what's happening to it. And you'll note that if we move too far, we drag this line into the data, we're going to start to clip the data. That's not good. We obviously want to avoid that, and you can see that represented by the top part of the histogram, the preview right there. Really want to leave the data alone as much as possible, so I'm going to take it up to about the bottom of these color ramps, if you like, on these bumps. Go ahead, apply that, reset your tools. It's usually good practice. Now the next step for me is going to be to apply some noise reduction to this image. So again, we're going to move on to the next of the wonderful RC Astro tools, NoiseXTerminator. I'll just run this live again, of course. This is just going to be run at defaults. It's really not very noisy data at all, I have to say. Over the course of those last few live streams where we were capturing this, and a huge thanks, by the way, to people who turned up for those streams, we managed to get a decent amount. This is nearly 5 hours all in that I've got for you right here, and it scrubs up quite well. I think you would agree. So if we just show you the before and the after, again, this is amateur data and it's looking like this. It is phenomenal what you can do these days. So before and after, before and after, and it really, it works like crazy. It gets rid of all that fine noise grain. I know that YouTube's compression is probably knocking off some of the visual impact of this, but truly, give it a go for yourself. I think it's quite incredible stuff. Next up, I'm happy with where the stars are at in this image now. I really don't actually want to mess with them anymore. So it's at this point that I'm quite simply going to take them out using StarXTerminator now. So generate star image, on-screen stars, drag and drop that over. And again, this is just the last thing now we need to let run before we can pull up our reference and start working through this image. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this slightly out of the way so we can focus really on the main event, the nebula structure itself over here. And it's done a wonderful job because it's taken everything out, as I've come to expect. Now, the tool that I'm going to use to get this image kind of stretched into shape straight away is, again, another tool from my friend Bill Blanchon and his partner Mike Cranfield. They worked together on making narrowband normalization. There is, again, a newer version of this tool available, but I'm just going to use the old one as it works just fine for me. And I'm a little bit phobic of random updating PixInsight too much. I'll just be real with you. But all I did there was just made a preview window, hit reset on the tool, selected SHO as the palette. Now, at this point, I'm going to pull up the Hubble reference for just a moment so we can get a rough idea of what's going on. We'll focus in on similar, the region, a similar region, should I say. And we can see, overall, this one's lacking in a little bit of those rusty reds out there, which is going to come through with this sulfur more than anything. So if I start hitting the sulfur boost, you can see that's going to start to lift. It's going to really come into the image quite strong there. So overall, round about there is fairly accurate, I would say. I'm quite happy with that. The blues are a little bit lacking, as is the overall luminosity. We can address that next once we've got the colors roughly in line. You could try it both ways, by the way. If you'd rather settle the levels of brightness first and then address the colors, that's also completely up to you. I think it can work both ways. So I'm going to use the oxygen boost in order to bring the blues over. You can see, again, this is one of those sliders where you could absolutely overdo it and end up something like this, which is nowhere near what we're actually heading for. But just with both in view, I think that's getting pretty darn close, I have to say. So I'm going to make sure I've got the right window selected, apply that, close the tool, and make sure that's reset. Next up, I'm going to address the brightness differences, the obvious brightness differences between these two. And really, I'm going to make use of curves for this. I think that's going to help me in setting this up. So I'm going to use RGBK with a preview window created, and I'm just going to bring it up gently first with a lift on the overall values. So you can see, if I just get the middle about in view, let's say here would be brighter than the Hubble shot. Down here is coming into somewhat in line with it. It's not too far off, around about here. Now I'm going to take the lower edge. Probably just reset my view for a second there. Make sure I'm not biting into anything else, but also I want to drag it down just a bit, and then we get that kind of classic S curve going on. Now, you don't feel like you have to just do this in one step. If you want to take a couple of movements at this, by all means do so. I'm just going to try to get it done in one decent, efficient step, like we talked about. Maybe a touch off the top end on that, and just checking close up once again. I think we're really getting quite close as it happens now. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Reset the tool. I think we're lacking slightly in saturation. So I'll lift that again. This is one of those where just a small slip and you'll end up with something unrecognizable, but just a little lift is a step in the right direction for me, I would say. And we are getting really rather close. I think overall, looking at this image now, it could perhaps stand a very small lift in the edge regions of it, perhaps. So if I just give you, for example, demonstration of what that kind of movement might look like, I want to tackle these areas that are currently orangey, if you like, and bring them a little bit up more towards a yellowy lime green. Not quite green, but you know what I mean. It's hinted at in there. So I'm going to try that using some of the mask tools. Now there's a lot of options out there for masking, but as you can see, it's captured the bits that I want, but it's a bit rough. So we can use mask blur. Let's get that a little bit more in line with what I'm actually looking for. Go ahead and drop that on the image. Curves once again. Preview. Punch into what I really want to see. And now by lifting green high end, we're just pushing that in the right direction. You can see the difference. Before, the after, the before, the after. It's lifted those regions. Be a little bit more in line with what we're seeing on the Hubble shot right there. And just that small movement didn't take long, but I think it's added to the overall image. So I'm going to say I'm just about happy at that. I'll close down the mask. Next up, I'm going to put the stars back in this thing, and we will take a look if there's any final adjustments that need doing. So to put the stars back in, I just made a couple of drag and drop tools for you. These should be included in the download if you made use of it. So I'm going to drag starless for rescreening over the starless image, stars onto the stars image, and rescreen onto any that you'd like. And now we've got the image with the stars put back in. I'll just close down the rest of the visual clutter. You can hopefully see that over the course of, minutes, really, it hasn't taken as long. We've came up with something that's really very close to that Hubble coloration. It's lacking a little bit in darkness in some of these regions, so I'm going to make use of another tool now. Scripts, utilities, dark structure enhance. I'm just going to try running this at defaults and see what it comes up with. You may need to sometimes fiddle with this, but actually it looks like it's done a good job right away, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think the last thing I want to touch up now, just looking at this, is maybe these bluer regions around here, a little bit too blue compared to the slightly greener regions on the Hubble shot. So I'm going to try a blue mask real quick for that. Again, a mask blur. This time a couple of times. I really want it to be largely blurred out. Drop that on the shot. Go to curves. Green channel once again. This is likely what we're going to need for this. And if I just lift it a touch, all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Whoops, if I just show you, before and after, we're there, you know what I mean? It's just a case of training your eye, I think, is part of that. And that really comes down to practice, exposing yourself to lots of different sets of data. And, if we want to really take a look at these two side by side, I know it's obviously never going to be a fair comparison, but, it is what it is. You can use dynamic crop for a moment. And, oops, make this window just usable for me. I'd say about there. Might match the rotation of the Hubble image. We can just punch in and see what we've created versus the original. And I think you'll agree, we've came pretty darn close. I certainly feel very, very happy with what I've managed to capture with just home equipment. It wasn't long ago, really, I wouldn't have dreamed of ever being able to do something like this with any degree of confidence. But now, you know, as you've just seen, live, running through, it's taken us minutes and we've came up with something close. As long as we had good underlying data, it's all been possible. So, I hope very much that you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you get something out of the data. If you do, I would love to see your results. If you wouldn't mind posting them over on my Discord channel. We've got a dedicated option right there, the images channel, if you like, where you can submit your shots and show us what you've been getting up to, show off your gear and all kinds of things on there. It's quite active. And I do check that out on the live streams too. So I will eventually see what you've been getting up to. So with that said, anyway, I just want to leave you with a very genuine thank you for all of your support. That goes out to each and every one of you out there in all the ways that you give it, right from just watching the video, clicking like, sharing it with a friend. That would be absolutely incredible. Right to the people who are giving each month direct support. You guys are the absolute best, and I can't possibly thank you enough. So, thank you so much indeed for your time. I hope you've got something from this, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. So until then, look after yourselves and clear skies.